Well, Dougald Lamont has been leading the Manitoba Liberals for 6 years now. Before stepping into the political spotlight, he spent many more years in communications and in jobs behind the scenes. He is running for re-election in the constituency of St. Boniface. Let's welcome Dougald Lamont, leader of the Manitoba Liberal Party. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Marcy. Yeah, great to be here.
So your party was unable to run a full slate of candidates in this election. You're 8 short. What happened?
Look, I mean, one of the things is that we do have high standards. There are people, I think, running for other parties who we would not accept. But I can say honestly, we were having to turn away candidates who, for one reason or another, weren't qualified, and we weren't willing to take that risk either for their sake or ours to be running candidates we didn't feel were qualified. So, but frankly, if you look at our entire slate, I think we have a better slate than the other two parties. So. Even if we're a bit short.
I know you've talked on the campaign trail, you've already addressed this, that there's a level of abuse and hatred that's targeted at Liberals.
Yeah.
Some of your signs have even been defaced. What have you encountered at the door on that front?
Actually, yeah, we encountered somebody who made a joke about Justin Trudeau being hanged. That's one example. Look, I think there's two parts to it. One is that I think it is a really serious problem, but it's also something that's being tolerated. Like, this is a level of of abuse, and it's not based on anything real. Like, that's the real thing, is that people are being worked up to hate Liberals because it's politically convenient.
How do you compare the political climate in Manitoba today compared to several years ago then?
Well, look, I mean, this has always been a divided province, but I think the pandemic really broke a lot of people, as well as breaking a lot of systems. So many people were hurt, and there have been these growing divisions. And unfortunately, that's something that people have been doing everything they can to make the most of. That you see wedge issues being weaponized by, frankly, both the other parties. And it's terrible because it's actually making all those divisions worse. In so many ways, I've never seen things more difficult in Manitoba, and I think that's being reflected in the anger and frustration of the politics as well. But we shouldn't be weaponizing it. The worst possible thing to do right now is to pour fuel on that fire. We should be doing everything we can to understand and bring people together, and that's not happening.
I want to talk about something that came out of a CBC Manitoba and Probe Research focus groups we did recently. In one of the focus groups, half of the people in the group had no knowledge of you, even though you've been leader for some time. How concerning is that for you?
Well, look, it's pretty frustrating. It isn't for lack of trying, I'll say that. But some of it is just a reflection of the nature of a fragmented media landscape. Mm-hmm. When I meet people, and sometimes people say, yes, I know who you are, I see you on the news all the time. But frankly, part of it is because our opponents deliberately pretend we don't exist. So if you actually look at the PCs and the NDP are talking about, they talk about Justin Trudeau. They pretend that Justin Trudeau is the Liberal Party in Manitoba when he's not. So it's partly just a consequence of a deliberate decision on the part of my opponents to sideline us and take credit for our work, which they do, which has happened. Like, we had a scrap metal bill. We had a scrap metal bill which we presented. Both parties voted against it. And then they turned around and brought in their own bills. And the reason I know it was our bill is because when I sat with the minister in his office, I heard the words from his lips that said, "You have a really good bill and we're going to use it." So part of it is that this is part of a bigger political effort on the part of the other parties to pretend that everything is the federal Liberals' fault and that the Manitoba Liberal Party doesn't exist.
But in fairness, the Liberals in this province have never really broken through. Everybody talks about Sharon Carstairs years ago and how those were sort of years where the Liberals broke through in a bigger way. But it has been a challenge. So I'm wondering whether or not when it comes to people at the door this time around associating the party with the federal Liberals, what would you say to those Manitobans about what you're about in Manitoba?
Well, look, sorry, I'm a bit taken aback. This is a new election. This is a new campaign. I'm a different leader. And part of what I have to say is that we are presenting a vision which is completely different from the other two parties. For years and years, Manitobans have been told they have no choice but to vote for these other two parties, no matter how much they treat people badly, no matter what they say, no matter what they do, no matter what kind of crisis they're responsible for. People are told that they have no choice. And as far as I'm concerned, that means that's not particularly democratic. And they're being told that by the PCs and the NDP. So we've done what it takes. We've nominated incredible candidates. Hands down, I will put my candidates up against NDP candidates and PC candidates any day. And and the other thing about it is that the idea that because something hasn't happened in the past, that it can't happen in the future, is that is just an argument that nothing can ever change.
Is that part of the problem? Did you balk at me bringing up Carstairs? Is that what you mean when you said you were taken aback? Is it sort of that lens that you feel like we need to move forward?
But why are we talking? All we do is talk about the past. When this has to be an election about the future and about what is actually the reality of what is happening in our province right now. And all people want to talk about is stuff that happened in the past, and they don't want to talk about the present. And I'm saying that that's equally true of the other two parties. So
let's spend our remaining time looking at your promises. You promised to end waitlist for $10 a day childcare. How would you do that?
Look, one of the things we have to do, the biggest thing is to make sure that we're actually paying for to train people. There's a massive shortage of people. The other thing is that when it comes to the YMCA or other nonprofits, we have a huge gap in spaces because the provincial government isn't actually paying for infrastructure. So we make sure that we pay for 100% of infrastructure for the 95% of childcare facilities that aren't covered right now.
On the healthcare front, you're promising Medicare coverage for regulated therapy and psychotherapy. What makes that an important issue for you?
We don't have a functioning mental health care system here in Manitoba. It's absolutely tragic. We have people who can't get help. We know that there are people on EIA, families on EIA. I talked with a mother who's got kids who need therapy because they were abused, and she's having to pay $800 a month out of pocket for that. So if we actually put money into mental health care is health care, it has to be one of the biggest priorities we have, and we have to stop dancing around it and start funding it.
How would you find the money to fund that, and also to take other steps to address the challenges in Manitoba's healthcare system?
Well, look, we're the only party that isn't cutting taxes in a huge way. The PCs and the NDP have embraced exactly the same budget. The NDP are running on the PC budget, and they're promising to cut $165 million in taxes and to keep sending checks to billionaires. And we said that's totally fiscally irresponsible, and we won't be able to pay our bills. I mean, the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives and Tom Broadbeck have both called out the other two parties because of the fact that they're not going to pay their bills. So we're the only party that's actually talking about increasing revenue by $360 million in the first year so we can pay for education and pay for all of our promises.
And part of that is increasing the tax on people who make $120,000 a year and eliminating the property tax rebate. Are those a couple of examples of what you're talking about?
No, the first one is wrong.
Okay, can you correct that then?
So what it is that we're actually changing the basic personal exemption so that people under who are making under $120,000 would get an improvement, but then you'd see a very slight change. It would slowly go up to the point that people who are making $300,000 a year won't get a basic personal exemption. So the
bracket moves.
The bracket moves, but it's based on it's not these big brackets. It's based on how income is actually concentrated in our society. But yeah, the property tax, it's not even property taxes. We have borrowed as a province $1 billion, more than $1 billion in debt, to send checks to Cadillac Fairview, to send checks to CN Rail, to send checks to pipelines. The NDP have said even though they spent months complaining about it, reversed themselves and have said that they're going to keep doing it. And they've said that they're going to spend $165 million subsidizing gasoline. To me, it's fiscally irresponsible. It's environmentally reckless. It doesn't make any sense to me. And that's why we have to change. And we have to invest. These other two parties are actually promising cuts. And they don't want to talk about it. They actually don't want to talk about whatever their platforms are. But the reality of their fiscal platforms is that both of them are going to be forced to make cuts if they go ahead as they do.
What do you see as your greatest personal strength?
Look, I will say I talk a lot about forgiveness. But the reason I talk a lot about forgiveness is because I have to remind myself to be more forgiving. I actually have... I would say sometimes people think I'm smart, but I really just remember everything. So I would say that's a blessing and a curse. Yeah.
If the Liberals don't make a big breakthrough in this election, or with the candidates that you're running, will you stay on as leader?
You know what? Yeah, I'm going to stay on as leader.
What would you like to say to Manitobans before we close our interview today?
One of the things I have to say to Manitobans, and I'm sorry if I sound a little intense about this, because I'm pretty tired. What is it going to do? What is it going to take for you to vote your values? What is it going to take when you actually look at the records of these other two parties and what they've done to this province for you to think about real change? Because it's going to take real change. And look, we have incredible candidates. I'm proud of my record as a party leader and what I've done. And we can stack that up against what the other parties have done. And this is an opportunity. This is one of the most important elections in a very long time. And the other two parties are offering you nothing, and we're offering real change.
Dougald Lamont of the Manitoba Liberal Party, thank you very much. Good luck on the 3rd.
Thank you.